Tonight's tactical enhancement is Kirin Ichiban. Tonight we're playing Team Yankee. 100 points, Russians versus the British, and it's a dust-up. The British will be deploying in this quarter over here. The American-looking vehicle is the one the Russians are trying to capture. That other thing at the back, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but that's the British objective. And the Russians will be deploying on this corner, the close one, again with one of our objectives here, and the British objective there. And reserves come on the same table long edge as the deployment quarter. So the Russian reserves will be in the back right corner of the screen as you see it, and the British reserves will come in the bottom left corner of the screen as you see it. There's a dead zone for deployment in the middle of that rather misplaced Games Workshop dice. And I've got some lovely railway terrain and assorted other bits and bobs that I've accrued over the years. Now, as for the Russian force, this is 100, well, it's actually 99 points. It's an infantry company, 2 small platoons of infantry, although I've ordered some big ones. HQ, observer for the artillery, a couple of recon BMP2s. And they have integrated with them a platoon of 4 T80s and 4 Tunguskas. And I'm bringing out the new toys at the moment. And by way of support, they've got 3 TOS, 3 of the Hurricane, these ones, and threw in an extra 4 T72s just because I needed a bit more muscle and I didn't know what to do with the extra points as they were balancing out. And that's it, very much combined arms. And of course Emilio has not brought aeroplanes, but that's okay because the amount of anti-light vehicle fire that's going to come out of those Tunguskas will be very useful against what Emilio's brought. As for the British, talk us through what you've got.
Yeah, so we've got the Challenger armoured troop. We've got 3 Challengers here. We've got another 2 Challengers, and we've got the headquarters.
Okay, and their turrets are all pointing backwards at the moment, but we'll remedy that ready for the game.
Yeah, and then you've got 2 identical mechanised platoons. Those mechanised platoons also include additional points for the Milan missiles. Right. So both have got the extra hitting power. And I like these little Scorpions. So there's 6 of these Scorpions. You know, they're cheap, but they're fast and they're great against infantry. So give them a go.
Rightio.
And finally, we've got the rocket batteries. So the MLRS medium rocket batteries, there's 3 of them in that group.
Okay.
100 points.
All right. And we will now commence deployment. Actually, talk us through what you got in reserve.
Yeah. So in reserve, I need I think 40 points.
Yeah.
So one whole group.
One whole platoon. All right.
And that's already 33 points.
Yeah.
And the other thing we've got in reserve are these batteries, and that's 9 points. There's my just over 42 points.
No worries. And with the Russians, it's a similar story. The T80s are in reserve. That's 31 odd points. And the Hurricanes, no, sorry, the TOS are in reserve. So we got the Hurricanes on the table. Right, well, we'll do deployment and then we'll check in time for turn 1. Forces are deployed. And on the Russian side, we have artillery in the tree line. We've got this spotter all the way up here, right on the edge of the deployment area, so you can actually see some things. We had some communication about the hedges and how much of a pain in the ass they are. Some T72s, really covering this back objective. It's worth noting we're expecting a bunch of T80, no, what are they? Challenger 1 to come up that river or down the road maybe. So this objective's a bit vulnerable. So what I did was I did a spearhead with a couple of BMP2 and blocked a shitload of infantry in that forest, who are at this point making it all look a bit untidy because I don't like to leave tree bases lying around. The rest of the forces, the Tunguskas, because there's nowhere else to put them, and I think the infantry are going to need some support. And one, well, I'll say a platoon of infantry. The Russians like to think it's a company, but it's a bit optimistic. And the CO and all the BMP2s are as concealed as they can be from the tanks on that hill. So if we get down at table level, nobody can see anybody. And we're going to try and do a bum rush into this town. Well, what do you call that, a farmstead? Before all that lot comes crashing into the farmstead, bearing in mind my reserves come in over here, as the British. After much angst over what we could and couldn't see over with the hedgerows, the tanks have taken a high point on the hill to be snipers, and if you're in the open, you are dead. Platoon of infantry, platoon of light tanks, platoon of infantry, and this little platoon of light tanks up there are just there to spot for the artillery when it arrives. And that's it. We will now roll for turn 1. Well, that doesn't bode well.
Oh!
Well, I guess the British are getting turn 1, although I don't mind because I've got artillery and I do want it to shoot. Alright, we'll check in at the end of British turn 1. British turn 1, and the infantry here have advanced, ready to stack on and try that forest. Meanwhile, an awful lot of infantry have come charging into this town because, well, they had the first chance to do so, complete with a demolition derby of light vehicles. That's going to be a bastard to dig out. And to my surprise, up here, the tanks advanced close to my reserves area. I guess they've got a couple of turns grace before that matters. And they're now going to try and take some pot shots at the Tunguskas. I didn't expect them to advance that close, but they did. 3 dice if you please. 3s to hit.
Yes.
3 hits and 2 plus.
Oh,
1 bailed and 2 bailed and 1 dead. That's hilarious.
should have been 3 dead, shouldn't it? Really?
Should have. Alright, we'll check in at the end of Russian turn 1. End of Russian turn 1, which is the whole of turn 1. Now, over here, most of my guys stay concealed in the forest. The 2 recce vehicles came up, bailed 1 and killed 1 of the transports. May not have been a worthwhile shot that, but we'll see how we go. Over here, the 2 Tunguskas that were bailed got back in, and they moved up and started lighting up these guys. So the killed 2 and bailed 2. And the BMPs moved right up and killed 1 or 2 and bailed the other of the light tanks. The infantry stacked up, assaulted into the building, killed a couple. Emilio decided he would withdraw the other guys because he was quite spread out. There weren't many guys who could actually, many British who could stack into that assault in order to fight it. He'd be fighting piecemeal otherwise, so he pulled back. Then I decided I would pull back because that means Emilio has to move in order to attack my guys, which reduces his amount of firepower, and also means that my infantry there can't get the hell blasted out of them by a bunch of 120mm cowpats of doom that'll come pumping out of those things. So first blood had on both sides now. We'll see how many of Emilio's guys rally and get back in. Oh, and it's worth noting I did drop artillery over here, which as long as my observers are around I can repeat. They cleaned up 1 guy and pinned that unit, which is why the assault actually worked. And that's it. Into turn 2. We'll check in at the end of the British turn 2. And British turn 2. Now they remained stationary and got off double shots each, which resulted in 2 more of the Tunguskas who were still within, well, they couldn't do much about it when they moved. They're still within line of sight of 2 tanks. And a poor little bazooka guy got hit twice with a 120mm chunk of flying plastic explosive. He didn't like that very much, and various other random shooting occurred in here, splatterings. Enough machine gun fire to pin that unit, would have to rally him, and they took out one BMP2 with a low pressure 76mm chunk of high-X from one of those mini tanks. On the other side, the transports didn't know what to do there, so they just moved up and started pot-shotting at the infantry in the forest there. Now we'll move on to the Ruski turn 2. And the Russian turn 2. My infantry in the woods here seem to be capable of digging a hole. 2 of my BMPs were able to shoot without moving, and they killed one and bailed one of these transports. I couldn't quite squeeze a template with a 6-inch safety zone for the rocket barrage onto these infantry without just being a tad too close to my own troops. So instead I put up a smoke screen, so in order to shoot those tanks he's going to have to move. That'll reduce his rate of fire to half what it would otherwise be. Over here we got the survivors to cram on in and just dump firepower after firepower onto these British troops. There are 3 Carl Gustaf stands and 2 Milan left in that platoon. That's it. And somewhere in the mix there is a APC with a machine gun. So they got very little defensive fire, but I don't want to risk it. I might be fucking up here, but I've got a sneaky suspicion I'm better off just beating them in a round of attrition, make them attack me, take some shots in the open, that sort of thing. I'm not sure how this is going to work. It's all a bit touch and go over here. My normal inclination is to say fuck it and charge, but I got a sneaky suspicion that may be the dumb thing to do today. So we'll instead go over to turn 3 for the British. Turn 3 for the Russians, and wasn't that exciting? Emilio rolled a 6 right off the bat for reserves. Oh, guess what? 33 points worth of Challenger turn up. Proceed to blast 2 BMPs, clearing out that recce platoon. Had a crack at another one, but missed. The infantry and the transports just threw barrel loads of dice into the infantry and pinned them, didn't kill anything. Then in the assault, the infantry went in. Unfortunately for Emilio, I did rather well on the defensive fire. Just got the fire I needed to push him back. That was against the odds. And Emilio lost 3 guys with some rather woeful dice rolls on the infantry saves. And those infantry got pushed back to the starting point. They're now sitting in the middle of a road with their proverbials in their hand in front of a bunch of guys with Kalashnikovs. As for over here, well, Emilio pulled what fire he could into the chaps in the building, the infantry, including one Milan shot off, which I wouldn't have thought he could do, but there was actually a clear shot. And the tanks pulled back from the smoke in order to pump rounds into the building, and I think they wasted 1 stand. So Emilio's counterattack over here that was looking like a king hit is now looking somewhat dicey, and over to turn 3 for the Ruskies. Russian turn 3, and of course my reserves did not turn up. We did, however, range and artillery on these chaps up here. Didn't do a damn thing except to have them sitting underneath a template, which they'll probably want to get out from under, and that means they'll reduce the rate of fire. Over here we poured firepower after firepower into things, killed off the last light tank, killed 2 more infantry stands. He's down to his last 3. Barely hanging on. He's going to have to move up to protect that objective soon. I didn't assault because, well, actually I didn't unpin that unit. I rolled a 1. I needed a 2+. So that was a bit of a whiff. Over here, however, those 4 Kalashnikov stands killed a bunch of infantry. We killed another transport and double barreled the other. Now I tried a gambit where I pulled out my RPG infantry from that platoon and I moved up my BMPs to try and all get flank shots. Nothing worked. I then had 3 RPG infantry that I sent into attack one tank in the flank. He had 4 shots and he killed 2 infantry with it. That was annoying. And of course the last infantry whiffed. I mean, by himself, I wasn't expecting a lot. I kind of needed all three to have a go.
You got one vehicle then.
Oh yeah, one vehicle got bogged. That was a bit annoying. Yeah, the tank just rolled over the top of the last RPG guy. It was a bit of a fizzle, and I wasn't expecting to do a lot, but if I could have taken out one tank there, that would have been nice. As it is, we kind of botched it. Turn 4 now for the British. British turn 4, and the challengers very cleverly got out from underneath the template. They reduced the rate of fire to do it and had to move pretty quick, so they slowed to -1 to hit. Didn't kill a damn thing. That was good for me. Those artillery, the other reserve, we put them inside the hedgerow on the field just so they don't fall off the table. They're actually sitting behind that hedgerow right up against the edge of the board. So they drove in at full speed and just hooned along the edge of the table. Emilio pulled back what's left of his infantry platoon here. He might even need him over here fairly soon. And his challengers exhibited some revenge and just blasted all 4 of the transports of that infantry platoon. And that's it. There's actually not a lot of stuff on the table for the Brits, and the Ruskies have still got things coming on. So we will check in at the end of Russian turn 4. Russian turn 4, and well, the infantry decided to sit still in there and just took out the last transport. We decided not to chase anything, and the RPGs are probably not enough to do anything to the side armor of those tanks. Over here, we moved up where we could, killed one and bailed the other of these little recce tanks. Put rounds all over the place, didn't do a lot. The artillery failed to range in. I was actually ranging in on a hill, because that's the only thing I could really see from the observer. And these 4 tanks came in the T80s. They arrived. They fired all their shots, only 1 hit, because the British are technically in cover. And it just bounced right off, which you'd rather expect at this point. So Emilio now has a target-rich environment, and we will check in at the end of turn 5 for the British. British turn, God, are we up to 5? Was this 4? That must be 5. I didn't roll for my reserves last turn. Okay. All right. So.
I didn't roll for my reserves.
You don't have any left, or do you?
No, I don't actually. Oh, the barrage. I didn't do that. They don't set the turn they arrive.
Wow. They can't shoot on the turn they arrive. They could have shot this turn, but you moved everything or shot everything, which is probably a smarter thing to do. Yeah. You don't have very many good barrage targets at the moment. As for the shooting, a Milan got an extremely cheeky shot off and picked off that BMP. The last surviving little tank took out a BMP. Those little tanks having a rather good day today, apart from all the dying that they're also doing. The good news, of course, is that the 6 shots of return fire from these guys missed every single one. And this resulted in an awful lot of negotiating what the terrain really should be considered as after we sorted it out last turn. Wow, it's getting late. We're going to do turn 5 for the Ruskies and see if we can get some sort of break in this shenanigan. We'll check in after that. Russian turn 5, and it's been a big one. The TOS turned up. I didn't get to shoot anything. We decided it was getting a bit silly, so even though it's a dumb thing to do, I pulled the T72s out so they'd at least get 1 shot. They didn't do a damn thing. Normally I would have kept them hidden in that forest, because by hiding in there without infantry support, Emilio's tanks have to get very close in to do anything, and it becomes very risky for him. So that was my second speed hump. Actually, the first one didn't really work. Over here, well, we dropped some artillery in, and it only hit actually on the 3rd go, but then I rolled a 6 and Emilio rolled a 1, and it took out one of his tanks. That was amazing. Then I got a flank shot in. I just did the full aggressive move out into the open at 14 inches and got around down the flank of one of those boys and killed it. And the other tanks, can't remember exactly how many they hit, but all we got was a bail. We poured the remaining fire into the infantry, bringing them down to 2 stands from that platoon, so they're no longer in good spirits. I'm pretty sure that means they can't contest an objective. and we killed the last light vehicle, whatever the hell we threw at, lots of stuff. And then the infantry assaulted into, basically did the, I think this still works in this version of the rules, shooting is too successful. We already had the objective because we were within 4 inches. We moved on to the top of the building, that gave us the objective. Did the shooting too successful to advance around the objective. Doesn't make a great deal of difference at the end of the day in rules terms, but it looks good to do it. At this juncture, it's nearly midnight, so we've got to call it as a school night. The basic gist of it is, but in order for the British to win or keep it going for another turn, they'd have to get the tank back in. The tank would have to drive out of the terrain and go and park next to the objective, which means it's going to die the following turn.
Do you want to make that dice roll and see what happens?
Well, yeah, see if it gets back in.
Alright, so I need a 4+?
Yep.
No.
Nope.
So what about these troops moving up?
Well, they can't capture the double, so
Just have to be within.
We could see if they could get within, like if they move 8 inches, does that get them within 4?
Whoa, it's right on 4.
Well, so we could drag it out for another turn.
Yeah.
Their result though is the last tank's dead. Those infantry would be slaughtered by the sheer volume of shit I've got pumping rounds out.
There were 3 in that unit left, not 2.
I killed one of those.
No, took it away.
Because you actually moved that guy up, he belongs to the other platoon.
Oh, yeah, you killed. Oh, there's the 2.
Yep, 2. So they're going to do a morale test and see if they stick around this turn. 1 dice. 3. Nope, they're gone. So there's 1 tank which is bowed and 4 infantry stands from the other platoon, which are actually quite dangerous. British are lethal even in small numbers. But I think the British at this point would just be playing for time.
Yeah.
That said, if I get my T72s in there, I could have made those challenges work for it.
I could have used them this turn.
Yeah, those artillery could have started pot-shotting around the general vicinity of the forest and maybe started picking them off.
Here, right on there.
Caused me some problems there with minelets.
Yeah.
But the actual top fire from those artillery is not very good.
It's probably over here.
Yeah, those artillery excel at massacring infantry in the open.
Well, maybe I could have done it on the objective.
It would have been a good idea. Well, actually, interestingly, you wouldn't have been allowed to unless your tank moved. Because he's danger close and he's still alive. But yeah, there's plenty of other targets around.
And then these guys would have had 4 dice into them.
Well, although admittedly, if there was going to be another turn, I would not have exposed them in the first place. This is just a shits and giggles.
Go.
Alright,
Shits and giggles.
Petty revenge. We're running away, we want to kill someone first. That's a hit. Assuming he gets to the armor, it's a kill. Give me a dice. Yeah, I still get an armor save. Let's see if I can give you the birdie with this one. No, I gave myself the birdie with that one. Alright, well, I mean, you know, we don't have time to play it out for the next 2 or 3 turns of fucking around.
Now let's say, look, the Russians had the advantage on this objective, on this flank. I didn't have much to answer back to take that objective, but I could have held him up for 1 more turn. If I had more time, then these 3 challenges could have actually have come into the game, but maybe too late.
Yeah, I think my speed hump held him up long enough, having to kill that stuff, because if they left it, they would have been plinked out in the backside and it would have caught him out.
Yeah.
So it ate time. I mean, if we were playing with an unlimited time frame, there'd be a duel between 4 T72s and those tanks up there, with whatever crossfire from a couple of odds and ends, really.
Yeah. But I just say as well, Chris played very well in his placement of taking these 2 forests and holding these 2 forests, because it meant it dried up my opportunity to take that objective or to hold that objective, because my forces there weren't enough of them to make a run down here without jeopardising the safety of that objective.
Yeah.
And it also meant that his barrage template was left to do what it needed to do, which included killing that challenger, because there was nothing to take them out. If I'd run my 3 challenges through here, I still had to deal with that. So Chris positioned his Russian troops exceptionally well on my right flank. And I got unlucky with the assault, because if I'd won that assault
Oh, it would be a whole
Earlier in the
different ball
game, it would have been a completely different game. I would have been able to then move into them or forget them, move back here and hold this position.
That's right.
This is where I'm going to say this is where Chris had the advantage by me failing on that assault.
The whole game swung on that 5th hit of your infantry that pinned them and pushed them back.
That was it. That's it. That's where the game potentially could be lost.
And I mean, it turned later on with some woeful armor rolls on Emilio's part in that last round of shooting.
I had two chances to take out some tanks and failed both times, and that shouldn't have happened with tanks like these.
I think after that assault failed, that meant that the British were no longer on the attack; they were now on the defence. Yeah, and I got lucky later on with my attack.
Yeah, and bringing those reserves on when you did.
Well, they took long enough, but they got here. But look, interesting thing. The only reason that my speed hump worked is because I used the spearhead recce, and because you can't go within 16 inches of an objective or an enemy deployment zone, I had to go way out on a flank. But because of the way that this mission map is structured, that's exactly the right place to put a speed hump.
Yeah. So you positioned really, really well.
Yeah. And look, Emilio did some clever things with manoeuvring his infantry assault and combined with the tank was perfect. He just got unlucky.
I got unlucky here, and I got unlucky with my challenges here. But I've got to say, tactically, Chris played really, really well. And I just got a couple of opportunities that
I think Emilio played really well as well. He got every shot he could out of those tanks, despite my efforts to stop that from happening. And he used his infantry conservatively and effectively, and it took a lot of work to get through them. It only really took off in the last turn on a morale test. That's an awful lot of work.
Some advice as well. This has hit us before. Agree on the terrain, what it can do before the game starts, whether it's what the type of terrain it is and what impact it will have on the game. And that had a big impact on these hedges and had a big impact on those ledges.
These hedges haven't come out of the box in about a year, which is probably why they're a little bit flat. There's been things sitting on top of the boxes. And I remembered how they work, but I've played a lot more of this game than Emilio has, and I just assumed that Emilio remembered the same way as me, but we didn't check it.
Well, last time I've used this terrain, I had chieftains, and the chieftains aren't as tall a tank as the challengers, and my argument is because the challengers are taller, they can see over the hedges, and that was a point of difference, and that's why when I won initiative, I picked the hedges to start the game.
Yeah. I mean, look, in the end, your use of the hill was really effective, so I don't think you suffered for it, but yeah, there's a lot of angst you can save by talking through the bloody terrain. Yeah,
before you deploy, before you start.
Side, yeah. Well, look, that I thought was a really interesting game. It was tight, it was close, things swung both ways. I mean, there were things I tried that just went horribly wrong and I lost my gambit, and some things did work for both of us, and it was right down to the wire. So that's a good one.
The assault that you did on the Challenger, that was good for me.
God, I destroyed half of an infantry platoon and all of their transports on a total whiff. I mean, you should only ever expect so much from Russian infantry and Amelia anyway, but that was
that backfired,
punishing me for my optimism. Yeah. But look, that was great fun. So look, thanks for watching. Feel free to hit like, subscribe, comment, tell us what we did horribly wrong or right, what rules we fucked up because we always managed to do something wrong. Thanks for watching, and time to call it a night.